Here, Elise.
Hi there.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Toohey. Phil, how are you doing?
All right, I'll keep it rather brief. So we are still in the process of closing out our 22 books. I will have my tentative numbers for 2022 at the next meeting. I do expect that we will end with modest surplus of 22. I'll have the tentative figure for you next meeting. Tonight I have figures through February this year. This is the first update for the 23 budget year. So far, we're in relatively good shape. Most expenses are in line with budget. We are seeing some pressure on health insurance, some of the benefit expenses. Currently running over on health insurance. Sales tax, we are seeing, there's a handout for sales tax. You'll see on that report, the February numbers that we haven't received yet from the county, but we have those figures, what they're going to be. They're down from last year. On a year-to-date basis, we're estimating that through February, we're at 1.69% over last year. So we're pretty much running in line with 2022, and we're tracking pretty much in line with budget right now, maybe slightly over. So just something to keep an eye on as we go through the year. We're okay with sales tax. I've given you some updates on our balances. The contingency balance is $619,000. Keep an eye on that. It's a little. We started out with a smaller balance than we have in the last couple of years. So just something to keep an eye on as we go through the year. And I'll give an update once again on the fund balance number next month. So if you have any questions, give me a call. Give me some more detail, obviously, this narrative before.
The county's sitting right behind you. You want to ask him for that money now?
The direct wire advance. How much?
Excuse me.
I don't know if they've received it yet either.
How much for?
So we get that information from the state.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Tony. Can you
Yes.
adjust the camera? Can you adjust the camera a little bit?
Yeah.
I can only see half the room.
All right. That's okay. Open to good hair.
Yeah, Dan.
Now you want it on top?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we can't be in full gallery. There you go. What did you hit?
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Video.
Okay. I'm just going to say, how much is it real substantially low, the contingency from last year, or do you know what that?
No, the contingency balance in most years, the majority of what we put in contingency is for unsettled labor contracts.
Okay.
So coming into this year, there was only one unsettled labor contract, so that's why they're smaller balance than the prior years.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, John.
Then next up, Julie Noble with the NYSERDA Carbon Neutral Project approval. Julie, what's going on?
Hi, thanks for having me. So the city applied for and was awarded a grant through NYSERDA for a total project cost of about $3.2 million to do a carbon neutral community economic development program, taking two of our large municipal buildings, City Hall and the Andy Murphy Neighborhood Center, and making them carbon neutral. And so that means that it would be taking all of the existing fossil fuel systems, HVAC, heating, cooling, anything, refrigeration, kitchen, appliances, and taking out anything using fossil fuels and replacing it with electric appliances. And in doing so, also offset all of the electricity use with renewable energy. So each building would be carbon neutral. The NYSERDA is using this as their showcase project. There is a new program for them, and we applied for this through last year's CFA, and we were awarded. And so this would start with energy modeling this year to look at both City Hall and the Andy Murphy Center. And then it would move to removing the fossil fuel systems, replacing them. So that would mean fixing the entire HVAC system at City Hall and at this Andy Murphy Center building where I am. Building envelope upgrades in both buildings for insulation and installation of solar energy and or geothermal energy at both sites to produce all the power, as well as electric vehicle charging stations, additional at both sites, and stormwater management at both sites. So the modeling would be this year, and then the design would, we would go out to bid and do the construction next year. So this project, with the grant award was $1,810,000 with a required match of 1.2 million. And we anticipate that 1.2 million to come from a variety of sources, including we know that some of it is going to already be matched by the work that is currently being done in the Andy Murphy Center to make the commercial kitchen that is nearly complete. So that's part of it. So private contributions are already part of this. However, what I am requesting are three things tonight from the council. One is the permission to expend the funds. So we were awarded the project, but I need permission to expend the funds. Second would be a bond for the full amount. So we won't need the full amount, but I'd like to bond for that full amount of 3 million. What's the number? 3,030,000 to fund the project, of which at least the 1.8 will be refunded by NYSERDA. And then I need, should this all be wrapped in together by finance, I need to also make a determination of environmental significance. If you wanted to pass that on to laws and rules, that's fine as well. I know that sometimes the expenditure and the seeker is done both in the same resolution, but it's up to you whether you wanted to split that up. Regarding seeker, this is considered to be an unlisted action. NYSERDA does have a specific programmatic type 2 standard list that they use, which supersedes the state regulations for the state environmental quality review. And so for doing that, one specific action that we are doing, which is specifically the heating and cooling load in the Andy Murphy Center exceeds by 100,000 BTUs, the threshold that forces us to go through the seeker. Otherwise, so I've completed this short form, and I would request the adoption of a negative declaration of environmental significance.
Questions for Julie?
So the total bond, Julie, is going to be like a little over $3 million.
Yes.
And then I got the 1.8. Where's the other ones? Contributions, and so we haven't fulfilled the other part. 1.8, you say it's going to be from the grant, and then the other one's private funding, or
And the bond.
and okay.
Other questions? Michelle?
So for the various components that are listed in the letter, so like for component 1, electric vehicle charging equipment, would there then be multiple charging stations at each building, or what would that be?
So what we put in the grant and what will end up actuating from the modeling may be different, but the proposal included one public EV charging station at each site, which would be 2 plugs. City Hall already has one, and my building already has one, but it's not public. So this would be one set of 2 plugs. Likely, I don't know. I don't know for sure. It depends on how the modeling ends up.
And what is photovoltaics?
Photovoltaics is solar power, and so the proposal currently is that both buildings, if we go with the modeling that the proposal suggests, we would be putting solar carports over both parking lots in each building.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, just to add, I think some further, as we look at, we're gonna be continuing to look for other funding sources to be able to help with our match, but one of the things that we look to when we're looking also at the overall funding picture is the fact that by having this grant install solar, to cover the loads of both these buildings and potentially other buildings, because you can build it up in our parking lot here and then send that power to one of our other municipal buildings. The savings that we'll have on electricity over the next 30 years, the return on investment there would really, that itself would help pay back any long-term loan or long-term bonding costs that we have. So that's also something to think about as we look at whatever share we do have left in this, will be more than taken up by, our utility savings, both with gas and electric, because we're basically going to be removing all of our gas costs for both buildings, and then, basically installing electricity all at once, which will then be able to recoup those benefits over 30 years. So that's just another part of this overall funding matrix that we don't have outlined in detail. We haven't designed the solar panels yet and won't until later this year. But that we could come back to you as we go further along in the project to be able to also show what the cost savings of this project is going to be once we get our modeling done. And so you'll be able to see, while we need the bond to be able to get started, to be able to do this work, we'll be able to come back and let you know how we're doing and how much money this project will actually save, other than just on the greenhouse gases and kind of what Exerted cares about. We also will have a pretty significant cost savings, for both of these facilities and then a variety of other city facilities that we'd be off to.
And I will add that my building is already fully covered with solar, so there's a 50 kW system on the roof already. So anything else added will help to contribute to if there happens to be increases in electricity with this shift, and also, as the mayor mentioned, taking some of that energy and using it remotely in other buildings.
First question is, it's more knowledge based than anything else, but what happens to these buildings if we were to get another ice storm like last year?
So they would be carbon neutral, but also we would still use backup generation systems, and you can be considered to be carbon neutral and still have a backup emergency system that is fossil fuel based. So although as an environmentalist, I'm opposed to that. However, either way, we would have still fossil fuel based generators at both facilities.
Okay, and just for my own knowledge, the required match of 1.2 million, we're expecting in-kind donations and everything else, but for simplicity's sake, or for safety's sake, we could just say that the 1.2 match would be from us, but with the hopes of, in-kind donations and everything else, lowering that expectation from the city.
Correct, and the known already is the match amount that is being invested in the kitchen, because downstairs in this Annie Murphy Center, we're shifting that commercial kitchen, and that process, in advance, we chose to do that and remove the fossil fuels from that kitchen. So through the funding, that support that is being used for that commercial kitchen, we were able to make choices to upgrade the system as it's happening. So we know for a fact that at least some of that, which is several $100,000 already, is part of that match, that is part of the offset. But yes, the safety is that we're getting the 1.2 million out of the bond.
Steve?
I think this is kind of a general question about solar panels and other equipment like that. And actually, Michael kind of brought this to my attention, talking about a storm. Is that equipment insured separately, or is it covered under our regular insurance? Do we need separate insurance for solar paneling if one gets ripped off during a hurricane? Are we covered for anything like that?
I can answer that. It's a long-term asset, just like any physical addition to our buildings, and so it has the same property deductibles that, if someone runs into the front door of City Hall with their car, same thing as if something happens to the panels on the roof, with some sort of incident. So if our roof is covered, the panels are covered as well. And it just, again, it depends on how much damage, right? It's got I think we have a $50,000 deductible for property. And so it has to be a relatively major incident. If a squirrel chews through one of the the wires, that's probably not going to meet that deductible. But if the whole roof has an issue and there's a fire in the building, all of those would be replaced under our insurance.
And I will also just note that there are specific requirements that will need to be followed for City Hall specifically, since it's a designated historic building. Just like when I did the window inserts, there were specific regulations that I needed to follow, and that will follow through also with this project at City Hall.
Okay. Other questions? All right, so on the issue then of the bond, the report reads, authorizing costs up to $3,030,000 for municipal buildings energy efficiency upgrades at 420 Broadway and 467 Broadway in general bond. Motion to discuss. Tony Davis, second by Michael Riviere. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
So I did not include a separate committee report. I don't know if you wanted to have the authorization to expend and the seeker go to laws and rules or here.
Yeah, that's the only committee report that I have.
I will say this, the bond authorization will have the authorization to expend the funds as part of that bond authorization, so you won't need that.
Okay.
Okay, so then for seeker, should that go to laws and rules?
Well, I do have the seeker short form in my packet here, but like I said, there's no accompanying committee report. And unfortunately, President Shaw is not here, so I'm not sure, is that time sensitive? Is it okay if well, laws and rules would be this coming Wednesday. So maybe we can get that figured out and taken through there.
If it could get moved to that meeting on the 19th, it would be great. I mean, I'm not able to finalize moving ahead with NYSERDA until they get this seeker adoption. So, I mean, I'm okay. It doesn't have to be tonight, but if it could be at the laws and rules, that would be great. I know that in the past, other projects, they've done the expend and the seeker in the same one, but if John is saying that the bond covers the expend, then that could extract the seeker and then do that separately at laws and rules.
Yes, I mean, the other thing is we could go ahead and approve the seeker if people are comfortable with that. Here. And laws and rules too, so 2 of the 5 of us are there. You know what, I'm gonna say, let's go ahead and discuss it here, because it's on our agenda. Unless, has anybody seen the laws and rules agenda?
I know it's very large.
I guess Andrea could have also, if she wanted to send it to laws and rules. She could have.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it's here in a sense, I'm just curious about why there's not a,
Is there any reason?
I don't think it matters which committee, in terms of the seeker determination itself, I don't think it matters which committee puts that.
I just don't want. Having that.
Hey, well, we can also check with Andrew Shaw. We are duplicating or usurping, we can send it on to laws and rules. Sorry, it's going to take me a second to fraternize amongst yourselves.
That side again. Where you go through?
You learned.
Yeah.
See, you got 30s right there. Yeah, so you can follow. Never well done.
This more.
Yeah. Michelle and I first.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not where.
Julie, do you need, can I ask you a question? Do you need any specific authorization for the expend funds for the grant? Because the language that we had for the bond ordinance after speaking with bond counsel authorized the mayor to execute contracts in furtherance of the purpose set forth herein. That's the language that's now in every bond ordinance. Okay,
That works. Yeah, they're not requiring it. I was doing it as a formality for you all.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So the report then reads, description, approved determination that attached secret regarding upgrades at 467 Broadway and 407 Broadway are an unlisted action. Do you have a motion to discuss? Michael Ranieri, second by Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion?
I think it needs to state that you are adopting a negative declaration of environmental significance.
Okay.
Yes. Everything's hard. I don't think so. I think great basis.
Okay. So the revised report reads approved determination that attached secret re-upgrades at 467 Broadway and 407 Broadway are an unlisted action and are adopted as a negative declaration of environmental significance. That work, Julie?
Yes, thank you.
Michael Ranieri, you second your first,
Oh, yes.
and Michelle, do you second your second? All right, good. Then any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, Julie. Alrighty. We move on to item number 3, CDBG authorization to expend funds from a grant. The report reads, requesting authorization to spend in the first instance in the amount of $246,425 for CDBG funded projects administered by the city. The capital account has previously been established to manage a variety of projects reimbursable by CDBG funding, and the estimated financial impact is 0. All right, we got a motion from Steve Shabbat, second from Tony Davis. Any questions for Lindsay?
Just-
Go ahead, Michelle.
Can you just tell us a couple of the projects that,
Randy, is this the correct address?
I know they're coming back to us, but
Unfortunately, we're-
what they are?
So,
Sure. So we've identified several parks, several facilities that are in desperate need of new and updated benches and trash and recycling receptacles. And so we are planning on taking that inventory and replacing most, if not all, of our benches in those areas. We do have, if we have leftover funds, we do plan to make other park improvements, whether that be updating and creating new signage, adding any necessary lighting, things of that nature. We're really trying to focus on the benches though at this time.
Great, thank you.
Is that in all the parks, Lindsay?
Just the ones that are within the CDBG parameters. So the ones that we've identified most in need are Barman Park, Block, Hasbro, Hutton, Academy Green. Those are the areas that we're focusing on to start with.
So new garbage cans at new trash receptacles at Academy Green.
Yes.
Oh, Bill Clooney can stop calling the mayor. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, so any discussion on that one? We have a motion and a second. We already have a motion and a second. We did a little bit backwards, but anyway, so if there's no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, we move to the next item. This is Article 7, tax certiorari discussion. We gotta go into, yeah, okay, good. With everyone's approval, we'll put that to the end since we have to go into the session to discuss that. Item number 5 then, recently added, is the one-day officiant license. This is from Melissa Tinty. We need to alter the fee schedule here. Melissa, do you want to tell us about this? Read your letter.
I'm trying, I have a new computer, sorry. So yes, this is, so the state passed a new law that allows people to get, you can't see me, can you?
No.
I'm sorry.
I can hear you.
I'm sorry. Okay. So it allows anyone to come to the clerk's office to get a license to be a one-day marriage officiant. And along with the law, it states that we can charge $25, and that money stays with the city and it's for our processing fees. And so we would like to be in compliance with the new law, and to do that, we need to amend the fee schedule to include that fee.
Get started in business.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, any questions for Alyssa?
So it's a one-day marriage official.
Yep.
$25 fee.
It's a $25 fee, and they, there are some stipulations. The couple to be married has to purchase their license in my office as well, because all the documents need to stay together. And so it's only good for that couple's wedding. They could come back and do another license and marry another couple.
All right, so I can just have, 10 couples come in one day with a $25 fee.
No, nope, because the license that they have to fill out is for one couple.
Okay. Put that in my words. Ties.
But at least for the record, from my perspective, folks that come to City Hall, they can also get married by the mayor, and I do about 60 a year, and I don't charge anything. So people can save their $25, or they can just continue to still get married by me. So we'll see. It's cutting into my business, I guess. So.
We actually have 3 couples who are waiting to get the license.
That's nice.
Well, officiants for 3 couples.
Okay.
And we don't want to put them off anymore. All right.
I'm sorry, Yanni, I couldn't hear you.
It's all right. The committee report reads, update the fee schedule to include $25 fee, license, quote, 1-day marriage officiant, end quote. So the estimated financial impact, 0. Do we have a motion to discuss? Michelle Hirsch, second by Steve Shabbat. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Tell the people they can get hitched.
Thank you.
All right, now we are moving to old business, which is the pilot plan discussion regarding the proposal for 166 units on Golden Hill. Will's here. Alyssa, can you let Will, you want to share your screen, right?
That works.
Yeah, so can you work with Will to
He
get-
needs to log into the meeting, and then I can do
Are
that
you
on my.
logged into this meeting?
I can be.
Yeah, somebody who knows how to do that.
I'm gonna send him the link.
They're all 3 assistant there, right?
Okay.
You should be. Oh.
It's down here.
Sorry. They're all 3. So.
Will,
WDA, B as in Victor, E as in Echo, LLA, at Penrose, BNROSE.com.
Sorry.
Instead of an I, an E. At Penrose.com.
Yes, he's getting that set up. This is what he sent me earlier. And is this been the same thing that you all with?
I have to cross check.
Okay.
I think.
If you lay out the parameters, right?
Yeah.
Then Stan and I, hold up, copy, hearing process, we did go with that, maybe we can make sure that we look at that.
Right.
So,
Probably.
yeah. Okay.
I don't have.
Yeah, so that's your.
Okay, thanks. And we'll do a separate.
Steven, family, is a partner?
Yes. Sorry, I'm on my back seat.
I can actually say some.
Sure, Joanna Contreras,
Yeah,
who's
kick things off
with the
over
county.
me. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Contreras, Deputy County Executive for Health and Human Services. I've been kind of helping to push this project forward since the departure of Deputy County Executive Mark Ryder. So I know this has been a long conversation. I'm kind of coming in later in it. I think this goes back to last October when you all were presented with the original pilot. So I just wanted to say we've had a lot of back and forth with the mayor and his team since that time. And Will go into all the changes, but there's been a lot of changes that have been made, just very quickly at a high level. The per door unit went up from 350 to 750 in year one. The community impact.
7:30.
7:30.
There you go.
The community impact fee has also been spread out over time and it's gone up significantly. And the annual escalator has also gone up. So will go into all that, but I just wanted to say, thank you to everybody who has been working on this. And a lot of work has gone into getting to this point where we're hoping that we've been responsive to the city's requests. And hopefully we can have your support.
There we go. Got it? Okay. Yep. All right. So what I have up on the screen is what we have in front of you, plus one additional slide. So I'll get to them. But thank you everybody for having us back tonight. I'm Will Bella with Penrose. Michael Berg, our partner and family of Woodstock, is here as well. Dennis and Dwayne from the county. We were last in front of you in November, and then again, I gave a full presentation in October. And we're here tonight to return to give some more details about how the project is developed since we last spoke, and talk about the pilot offer for your consideration. But first, just some quick updates of the project as a whole. We've really gotten into the details of the last couple months, investing a bit into detailed construction documents and engineering documents to allow for this project to get started early next year or the end of this year. And we've had some other major improvements since then. The old jail is gone, thanks to our partnership with the county, who invested a good bit of money to bring down the facility. It's currently removed. All remediation is complete, and the property is ready for vertical construction. So that's a major improvement and a big step in the right direction. In addition to that, we jointly responded and received a $1 million plus grant from New York State to fund a pretty large 700 kilowatt renewable energy system that's going to make a really significant difference to the property and turn what was already fully electric development into potentially a net zero property, where the property is producing enough electricity more than it needs. So it's, I think, really significant. It should be an example project like City Hall, and really in line with the Green New Deal legislation and the vision of this property from the start. In addition to that, we are working on construction documents and submitting for all the funding for the months to come, and we'll have another community meeting in the months to come to talk a little bit about some of the updates we're giving you tonight and give people an idea as to how the project is developed in the months that pass. Quick schedule, I think I just kind of went through this, but we're right now working through detailed construction documents and working our way towards the closing at the end of the year. With that, I actually want to swap and give you guys an idea of what we've been working on. If I can get this out. Okay. Yes. Wish me luck. Okay. How's it look? Good. Okay. Great. This is a video walkthrough of the facility. I'm going to stop along the way. You'll get a better look at it as we come along, but this is the front community building, right as you come up Golden Hill Drive. It's going to have a 2,000 square foot, or I think it's more. There you go. I think it's better than me because families live up.
Like I said, it will be providing first and second shift childcare for infants and toddlers. It'll be run by the Child Care Council, one of Family's divisions.
Great. Not just to the people who live here, but the community as a whole. So, and on the back half of the building, we have a fitness room for the facility and giant community rooms going out overlooking the green. These are mailboxes, and we have a bus stop here where UCAT's going to pull up and provide service to the property. Keep on going. Feel free to stop me.
Yeah, just because it's what I used to do. Is this a one-way road? Because the direction that your bus was showing, they'd actually have to walk into traffic for the bus.
One-way loop, so the loop would go around and exit the property.
Yeah, so the way the bus was positioned,
Okay.
they're walking into traffic to get onto the bus.
Walking
distract people.
So back up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And again, this is just because
Vision of the video.
15 years. Pause it there. So if someone wants to get on the bus,
Yep.
so the door is on the
Wrong
left-hand
side.
side.
All right, well, we're gonna work out these details. Got that one, I'm not gonna forget it.
You need to get those buses that go upside down.
Yeah, double-sided door. Making our way along the route, this is our senior building, 80 units of 100% affordable senior housing, pretty deeply affordable. And you can see some of the townhouses for individuals and families on the left. Up in the front here, you can't see it fully, but one of our 3 EV charging car stations that we'll have at the property. This building's gonna have a roof deck overlooking the mountains to the north, a community garden in the back, and a nice terrace. You can see some of the solar panels that we're gonna have on all the buildings, flat and gabled. Going around the loop here, some more of the 2 or 3-story townhouses they're 360-degree buildings with entrances on both sides.
Is that a parking?
It's a central green, so yes, it's a park with playgrounds. We're gonna go right through it. This is the 48-unit family building, the mix of families and individual housing. Another playground on the right here. And we're gonna take a left turn and kind of go through the central green. Here's a nice like hangout area, and we have a variety of playgrounds throughout the site, sized for different ages, some for young children, some for older people to get a physical fitness in, and some for regular elementary school children. It's another passive area. This is just a big central green, and it spills right out into, that's the back of the community room and community building we saw in front of the site. And that loop road will continue around. So all the cars will travel that way, including the bus. And I think it just backs out to give you a better idea. Cool, so any questions on the physical representation of our ideas today or?
So are those like accurate renderings of buildings?
Yeah, this is exactly what's been shown to the planning board and the stone and, yep. Thanks. All right. Back to the nitty gritty though. Okay. So in front of you on the next slide here is our updated pilot request. And I will compare it to what we submitted to this committee in October in just a moment, but to walk through the high level. It is a pilot payment of $620 per unit. That's $101,000 in year 1 for a term of 30 years, escalating at 3% annually. In addition to that, a new concept here, community impact fee, paid annually as well for the 30-year term, escalating at 3% as well. Adding those two together, total revenue to the city in year 1, $730 per unit, as Joanna mentioned at the beginning. Here's a comparison to what we submitted last time in October. On the right is the original request in October. It includes $350 per unit in year 1, growing at 2%, so we've increased to 3. And it included an upfront fee and a share of surplus cash flow. You can see that on the bottom right, starting after year 16. Part of the difficulty with that was there's uncertainty around it. If the property did better one year, we would share more. If it did worse or another significant repair was required, it could be 0. And I understood that that can create some discomfort. So what we've done is change that surplus cash concept to a steady guaranteed payment under a community impact fee starting in year 1. This will be part of our operating budget. There won't be any fluctuation or unknowns, and it won't be subject to property performance. In addition, you can see the 730 we showed on the last page, the combination of the community impact fee and the annual pilot fee. This one is split between taxing jurisdictions. This one 100% of the city of Kingston. It grows at 3%. So we get to about 2.2 million paid to the city of Kingston by year 15. That's in comparison to 1.2 for the last offer, and continues to grow really significantly in the years to come. 3% escalator makes a big deal. up to about $5.7 million paid in comparison to 2.8 in the previous audit. I'm going to compare this to some other similar projects that you might be familiar with. Again, please feel free to stop me at any point. But this is a slide from last time we met with you guys about some of the challenges this property has, not just the economic environment in general, but also the property itself that has made it challenging to get to those higher dollar amounts that you might be familiar with. One is construction costs have increased dramatically, upwards of 25% since when we started the project. And we hope that's going to slow down, but it hasn't shown to yet. Insurance costs, premiums have doubled across our portfolio in New York, tripled in New York City. It's another significant increase to our operating budget. Mortgage rates, I don't have to explain that. We underwrote a 3-something when we started, now we're at a 7-something. Everybody understands the impact of that. And the really specific one with this project is something we did know from the start, which is that this property is not in a qualified census tract. Unlike many of the other affordable developments in the last 15 years in Kingston, which are in that purple area, Golden Hill is not. And it makes a big difference. It's upwards of $7 million in our underwriting, which has been part of the challenge. So what we've compared here is, given those challenges, we've done our very best with this offer today to get as close as possible to other similar projects that you've seen improved in the past. On the right are a few projects that you're probably familiar with that have adopted resolution or pilot agreements in the recent past. As you can see, while we are starting a little lower, that escalation of 3% annually really catches us up very quickly. By year 10, we're greater than $1,000 per door. And by year 15, we're paying more than the property on the right here. And by the end of the term, we're paying more than the Energy Square as well on a per door basis. Of course, the gross number paid is significantly more from the start, but it's important to look at this on a per door basis, given our property is going to be larger than these approximately 60-unit properties. So
I just want to point out too, with the other Rupco properties their increases are 2% per year, whereas what you're talking about here is 3% per year.
That's correct. So every year here, we go up 3%, including this as well. So both of these columns. And if you can probably see it from the numbers not changing here, and then jumping, and then not changing, and then jumping. There's large periods there without escalations. Same thing here. This one does increase every year, but it's 2%. So between the 3% escalation on an annual basis, we really do catch up quickly. And this was the most compelling offer that we could make while keeping the project financially feasible.
So Landmark, Energy Square, and Lace Meadow, how many units?
They're all approximately 65 units.
And you guys are what?
164.
And you're saying Landmark is only Energy Square and Lace Meadow are about 65 units, approximately?
About. I've got the exact numbers in there, but yeah. And another interesting point, I mentioned this before, is these pilot payments are split between the taxing jurisdictions. So is this, but the community impact fee is currently structured as 100% to the city of Kingston. So you can see the amount received by the city in yellow here. It's significantly more as well. So we thought that was hopefully a compelling offer to the city. With that, I'll wrap it up with a summary and turn it over to questions. This is just reiterating some of the stuff I just showed you, but compared to the October iteration, $1 million more in revenue to the city of Kingston by year 15, and $3 million more than what we offered by year 30. That's really just the subject of that 3% escalation, which is significant. And you can see it here on a per unit basis, starting at 730, very quickly reaching greater than $1,000 per unit and getting close to $2,000 by the end of the term. an over 100% increase in payments. Hopefully, we feel that these are in line with some of the other agreements that have been agreed to by the council in the recent past, especially given this challenging environment, and we hope it's something you guys will consider. But that's all for me, unless you guys have anything that I missed.
No, I think you did a really good job kind of making the difference in where we are. And certainly with respect to understanding the challenges that you face given the environment that you're trying to build. The only thing I would like to say is that I've been involved in just about every affordable housing project. And this is the only one that's really reaching to low-income people. Where some of the units are 30% AMI, 40%, 50% AMI, not 80 to 120% AMI. This is really reaching the low-income people in Kingston. Thank you.
Questions? All right, David?
You mentioned that AMI, is that set in stone, the AMI? You just mentioned that's gonna 50, 30, 50, 60%. Is that something that's gonna be all the time? And AMI, you're not gonna go above that?
Sure, it's going to be set at construction closing, which we're projecting into the year, and it'll be stuck like that for the entire length of our regulatory agreement, which would be greater than 30 years. We won't be able to change it. Those rent restrictions will be set.
I got you.
Sure, go.
You got a lot?
I do. I mean, I'm just gonna start this off with, yourself or Penrose and Ulster County were in discussion since what, probably 2021? 2021?
20 was the RFP?
Yeah, somewhere around that when the RFP was issued.
And we started in earnest in early 2021.
And then that you didn't speak to the city of Kingston until about late 2021, 22. Would that be fair to say?
I can't say for sure, Mr. Davis, but I think we went in for our original approvals.
We did speak to the city of Kingston when we decided where the site was, and the city actually passed a resolution in support of the project to be located at Golden Hill back in 2020, I believe. So we did have conversations with the city, and the city did take an action relative to us to support a project. We didn't know at that time, but we knew that we were looking to provide a affordable housing project up there. We asked for the city to support that project before we went ahead and went out for an RFP and made a decision that site would be utilized.
All the same, and I'm just confused that, and we had this delay, Penrose, Ulster County talking, when this is in the city of Kingston. And now, a year later, 2 years later, Kingston now has to decide to make this deal, right? And, you know, you come and say, Kingston, you must take this deal. And I'm a little, I don't know what word to say in regard to that. I think that Kingston, the city of Kingston should have been here with, talking with Penrose and Ulster County from day one in regard to something that's gonna happen in the city of Kingston. You state in this letter, though, that, I have highlights here, and, option A and B, assuming the city receives 20% of the pilot payments, 100% any surplus cash for community impact, and the community impact, which the fire department, which is most likely gonna respond up there more than any other entity that we have in the city of Kingston. And then the last part here. We're happy to discuss the alternative pilot offer with your office or investigate additional strategies to arrive. Should have been add in an equitable and agreeable financial package to the city of Kingston while delivering the high impact affordable housing project, period, which should have been the high impact affordable housing project for Ulster County. So my question is, what is the benefits for Kingston? This is going to be the Kingston city taxpayers who are now have to fund a lot of this, that this affordable housing is going to be for Ulster County. So are you, in some of these things here, are you going to have preference for local and contractors? Are you going to, is city residents going to have the first dibs on these residents? Are you still gonna install the gate at Glen Street? Are you gonna install the lighting, traffic light? What is the benefits for the city of Kingston residents? Since we're gonna be, the city of Kingston residents are gonna be the ones that are gonna be impacted the most by this Ulster County affordable housing project.
I would like to ask a question just to piggyback on that, but I think would help answer that is, my understanding is that a lot of residents from the city of Kingston are currently in emergency housing and have been for a long time. So my understanding is that a lot of people that are currently Kingston residents would be able to come back into the community and be in this housing.
Well, that's what I'm trying to make sure, is that a guarantee that city of Kingston residents are gonna have the first dibs on this? Doesn't state that. I mean, there, you have residents from Ellenville, you have people from all over county that could take advantage of this, not to say that they don't, but is there gonna be city of Kingston residents have first dibs and being housed in this development?
Joanna.
We definitely agree that it's important that Kingston residents are able to live in these units, and like Councilman Hirsch said, we have hundreds of people from Kingston that are being placed in emergency housing throughout the county. So and some of them are in Green County and they're trying to take the bus back to their school. So there is a definite benefit to Kingston in terms of those residents. We have to make sure though that we're abiding by the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits discrimination in any form. So we support Kingston residents being able to live here, but we need to make sure that we're abiding by that law, obviously. And then in terms of the first point about the pilot, my understanding, I wasn't here, but was that the original discussion with the mayor's office about the pilot occurred in October 2021, which is about a year before the proposal was submitted. So it has been an ongoing conversation.
And I think the mayor can speak to what's on the report here, the Kingston Municipal Preference Policy.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think has come up for us is we've been working with lots of different housing developers that want to do work in Kingston, and I share, Tony's concern that, our taxpayers generally are very supportive of building housing in Kingston, and we want to be able to build housing at all income levels here, and we really want to make sure that when we are supporting these housing projects in Kingston with kind of our taxpayer dollars, that we support Kingston residents. And so working with our housing office, we've created a municipal preference policy that we believe meets all of the requirements for fair housing, and one that we've now shared with all of our development partners, and we'll be including in all of our future pilots. And so we would be happy to I brought a copy just for your team to be able to look at. But we feel like, and I can email it around too, but we feel like that's a really great step in being able to make sure that, when lotteries for these facilities occur, that a point system is created, and it details what that point system would look like, so that folks who live in Kingston currently get more points. Folks who have been displaced in the past 2 years get points as well. Folks who may be currently homeless or have a special need and need to get into an apartment can also score a point in the system. And then that would allow, at least during these lotteries, to be able to make sure that when you get hundreds and hundreds of applicants that apply to these lotteries from all over New York State sometimes, this is a way for those from Kingston that are suffering the most to be able to rise up above others, while still making sure that we're keeping it open and we're still not discriminating against any one group. And so we're hopeful that, as a part of the discussion tonight, if the council would agree to move forward, that this could be one of the items that we incorporate. And I think that could get to your concerns already.
So this is something that has been in place, or you guys?
Yeah, so we created this policy a few weeks ago after some pretty intensive legal review from our staff, and we have we feel confident that this policy is enforceable and workable, and Bartek has been, now sharing it, with all of our partners, and happy to be able to share it now with you guys.
Thank you.
We would be happy to look at that with you and put that in place to the extent allowable by state, which it sounds like you guys have already done your due diligence, so I look forward to discussing with you.
Tony
Had a bunch of questions.
Yeah, he took two of mine. What are the updates regarding the Glen Street and then the 32?
Glen Street and Route 32, under design, both will be built. We can't pull our building permit without the gate in place, period.
Without the what?
Without the gate on Glen Street in place, can't happen. So that is, we're going to go under construction as soon as design is complete. And the light has to be built before we can, the city will issue a certificate of occupancy. As part of our site plan approval from planning board.
And the water sewer, that's also being done by the county funding, correct? Is that-
I don't know what you mean by.
Water, my understanding just was that any upgrades to the water and sewer system were being done.
There would be a discussion between us and Penrose, but we understand that if there is needs to upgrade water and sewer systems, that effectively that's a technical issue. We work it out with the engineering firms and go through that process to make sure that water and sewer is adequate. I mean, that's just a given in terms of any development, that the water and sewer has to be adequate. Where the funding comes from is a discussion.
So this follow-up, you said the Glen Street gate can't be, it has to be done
before I can start construction.
We have requests for proposals back and we put those engineering firms.
I can't even get my permit until it's built.
And then you said with
Route 32.
32.
Route 32 is a bigger project.
Must be built before occupancy.
Yes, before a CLO is issued to the property, anybody can move in, which I'm highly motivated to get to. So, all right, same timeline for the design. Did you have other questions, Tony?
No, I mean, again, I didn't want to take it up, and I with those addressed, I hit, and I, thank Steve, the mayor's office for coming with this point system, which I think is beneficial.
Could I just follow up, Tony, on your one point that I think you made to kind of your second-ish question, is local labor.
Local labor.
And I wonder, that's something that we've talked about here a bunch of times with different projects that have come before us for pilots.
Sure.
And we wondered, would you be willing to set a benchmark for some local labor in the project? We've asked for other developers to to try to incorporate 20% of the workforce as local, and we could work with you on what that language would look like. Is that something you all would be willing to work with us on?
Thanks for bringing that up. This is a really large investment. 164 units is a big project. It's going to be a big impact on the community. We want to make sure that every dollar that goes in has an impact and is felt by the people who live here. That's why we've already committed to 20% of all contracts going to local businesses, 50% of all new hires to local labor. That's in our agreement with the county. It's been in place for 2 years ago.
Just
Yep.
nuance, what's your definition of local?
It's Ulster County and the surrounding counties. Green, orange.
Within the eastern hemisphere,
Not Westchester.
Not Westchester and Belmont.
Ulster County, Green, Dutchess. And
Orange.
orange, basically a body. Okay.
Look at that. That's not missing.
So and again, let me just run.
Not Westchester and Belmont.
So 20% of all contracts for local,
Yes,
and then what was the other part you said?
50% of all hires local.
And again, that's in these counties that you already described.
Correct.
The county has a purchase and sale agreement as well, so a local development agreement between us and Penrose, and those are included in that.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Steve Chavez?
I think we can all agree that a project this size, the amount of housing that's going in could represent some real strains on every department, fire department, DPW, everything. However, this is also going to represent quite a bit of revenue to our community. I don't know if there's a way we can quantify whether that amount of revenue, people shopping and supporting local businesses, that amount of people, it is going to be pretty close to a lot of uptown businesses. So, I would expect a lot of people are going to be shopping at the plaza and, going various places. I don't know if we can quantify whether that's going to offset the strain on our departments.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
I don't know, it's just, I don't know if we have, I'm sure we don't have an answer to that, it's just.
Not off the top of my head, but I did mention a community meeting. We want to, go through this video and talk a little about that sort of study can be done for projects looking at indirect benefits. Perhaps I can have those numbers in mind when I talk to the community, what sort of impact this is gonna
It would
have.
be nice to know, I mean, and we're not even quite sure, what kind of strain it's gonna put on our departments financially. I would suspect quite a bit. But again, the amount of people living in a complex like this is gonna be a substantial amount of money, being spent.
Yeah, that's a good point, but, and also to that point, I think the 5.7 million in taxes that you'd be getting over the life of the project is currently not taxes that you're receiving out from the property. So that will help offset the expenses.
Yeah, that's crucial. Right now, we get zero.
Yeah.
How long,
No, go ahead, I do.
how long is it going with, how long has it been?
Off the tax.
Out of the tax rate?
Since the sixties, or even before then.
Yeah.
Clearly, the jail has been up there probably since the early sixties, and I would imagine that ever since the county's owned it, it's been off the tax rolls. One of the things that the county did in the past was it sold its nursing facility and put the nursing facility back on the tax rolls as well. So that nursing facility went back on the tax rolls when the county basically, obtained the ability to sell that. And that came back on the tax rolls probably 2009, 2010. So we now, if this project goes through, we would now have essentially two taxable entities on Golden Hill where there were none.
Dating back to in one part to the 1960s.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Mike, go ahead. So two questions that are related. One, how many units are more than 2 bedrooms?
Tough to me.
I'm roundabout, I'm not gonna quote you an exact number.
I can't tell you off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's no, because the follow-up question is, yes, we know some of these will be local Kingstonites going from one place to the other, but have we looked at what this will do to our schools? How many students are gonna be coming in? Like, are we gonna have to do upgrades to our school districts in order to compensate for the flow of people coming in?
Yeah, I think these are great questions. I think it's important to know that we have reached out to those folks that are essentially the concerns with respect to the stress on the community, the concerns with respect to the schools. We've reached out to all those individuals, had conversations with those individuals. And the city planning office, through the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has issued a negative declaration with respect to the project. Included in that negative declaration is the impact on community services.
Okay.
More specifically, part of that was we had to reach out to the school district and provide them a calculation of the number of children that will be created from this with school-age children. Keep in mind, I think it was like 60, but I'm not sure. We do have an 80-unit senior building here, so about half the property having children.
And what's the school say about the?
They issued a letter of no significant impact to the school system, which was part of our environmental review.
And how do they feel about the pilot?
It wasn't part of our initial conversations.
So the school districts haven't been included in this, or?
They're not included in these pilots. They don't, they can voice an opinion, but they don't have a vote.
You don't have an approval process.
Yeah. No part of the approval process.
Do we know how many children are still from Kingston School District currently in emergency housing and having to be bused in from even potentially out of county? That wasn't. How many kids are out of, Kingston City School District children are in emergency housing or shelters that are?
Oh, quite a lot.
Yeah, so.
They're all over, I'm placing them every day in Highland, in Kerhonkson. I just paid in motel bill $122,000 for the month of March and 1 week in April. They included the Colonial in Kerhonkson, they included the Ellenville, they included Highland and Wenton.
Right, our school districts are paying busing for
those students to come in.
So, and I see from your, I read in your letter that November 8th, 2022, that it says the Kingston School District has reviewed and determined whether or not a person back in the district capacity. So, sounds great.
Yeah, so I think the crucial thing there is also, especially with this policy we're talking about, Kingston Municipal Preference Policy, we're not bringing students in from Tennessee or, Nebraska or whatever. We would be actually housing students who are here now, they're already in the schools, and they really need that kind of consistency.
Yeah. And I'm glad that, again, that this impact that the mayor's office has come up with, that I'm all for it. I mean, I'm a school teacher, so I see the screen on there and, students of mine that have to go to, out of the city of Kingston, be housed, and, and down in Ellenville and Highland. I've a couple of times had to drive students of mine down there, so I understand the impact, and that's why I asked that question, that will the city residents have a first dibs, if you want to say, of coming back to Kingston and his children coming back and not having to be bussed down as far as they are. So I'm hoping that it helps and these point system can be implemented and we can bring as many that city of Kingston residents back to the city of Kingston. So that's what I have to say.
Two questions, one probably for Dennis. You had mentioned earlier that this property was taken off the tax rolls in the sixties.
Oh, when the county owned the tax, I don't know how long we've owned it, but clearly when the county owned the entire Golden Hill, it was also tax rolls. I'd have to go back and see. I know the jail was built somewhere between 66 and 70.
Okay.
And then the next piece was the nursing facility, and then we built a mental health building. We also had other facilities up there. But if you look on there, think where our emergency management is, that building has been up there for quite a while. So it's been decades that it's been up for decades.
I'm just curious, like what that property would have been on the tax roll for us. But obviously going back quite a long time. And then the second question, and then this might not even be directed to you, but policy wise, why wouldn't the school district be involved when they're?
It's under the law, we're looking, so under private housing finance law 577, the city of Kingston is the authorizing exempting agency. And we have the exclusive vote on making this property exempt, and that's what will be happening. You'll, in the end, will be authorizing the exemption and at the same time entering into a payment tax agreement. So this council is the exempting agency. So that's why Penrose and the county is here to ask for that exemption and at the same time enter into an agreement. You could hypothetically grant the exemption and not ask for a payment tax agreement. But so an IDA, Ulster County IDA has exclusive exempting authority. They have this informal, sometimes formal, sometimes informal policy of asking the affected taxing jurisdictions for their opinion. Sometimes they rely on that opinion to authorize their exemption because they're granting an exemption as well. And right on the same side, they're entering the payment of tax agreement. So on the real property tax law, private housing finance law specifically, we are the exempting authority. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one question. Michael, you talked about making payments for housing. You mentioned you had 122,000 or somewhere. Where does that funding come from? You're cutting that check.
The county pays for it. But we're placing people in emergency housing from about late afternoon to well into the evening. And it seems that some of the motels in the county would rather do business with us than the county. So we're placing huge numbers of people now.
And so the county, that funding comes from the general tax collection?
No.
No.
It's reimbursable by the state.
By New York State?
Yeah, not fully.
If
75%.
if it's cold blue, if it's during the warming set, when it's 32 or less, it's paid for by 100% of the state. If it's not, then there's also some people that were placing under a grant called HEAL, which was a Columbia University grant about substance abuse. And so when people are in recovery or coming back from detoxification, we can put them in for some time under grant funding. The rest of it's coming from the county and they're reimbursed for a large portion.
So about 25% is the maximum you probably out of the county is out of pocket from the tax collection.
It depends on if it's a family or a single adult, that also changes the reimbursement rate.
Okay.
So it's higher.
New York State is a guaranteed shelter state, so if you present yourself to DSS as being homeless, then DSS has a responsibility to find you shelter. The county takes on that responsibility from the state.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, so the current report then reads, authorize the mayor to sign all documents necessary related to the presented pilot agreement by Penrose for the construction of the Golden Hill Affordable Housing Project. The pilot terms identified will be option B as presented in the March 1st letter attached to the report. In addition, the following additional items will be required. One, project will utilize the Kingston Municipal Preference Policy. See attached. Two, the developers will utilize at least 20% local labor in the construction of the project. Three, the developer and/or county will pay for any water-related infrastructure to build out the project. Four, the developer and/or county will meet all of the site plan approval requirements, including the emergency gate on Glen Street and traffic control improvements on the boulevard.
We should make sure it says Route 32, not just the boulevard, so provided, boulevards are beach where Stewart's is. We would call it boulevard. So I want to make sure that's in there. It's Route 32.
All right, so I'm adding Route 32 at Golden Hill Drive. Yes, Mike.
I know it's in talks to have this added, but can we have the language added for updates?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Project updates, yearly project updates.
So you're asking to amend it so there would be a fifth thing that says that we ask for quarterly updates from Penrose on the process of construction. Is that what you mean?
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
Sorry, can I just ask a question, clarification question? Is the local preference policy being included in the resolution? Because we haven't seen it yet. We just haven't, I know you said you had shared it with development partners, but I don't think.
No, it's new within
Yeah.
the last few weeks.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet.
But we'll still have-
Obviously, we'll have to.
Yeah, there's
be able
still,
to review it.
right, there will still be negotiation, there will still be review that has to happen.
Okay.
So this,
Yes.
this is not casting everything in.
Okay, thank you for.
And the main thing is that want to make sure that if it's not deemed to be sufficiently legal in terms of the funding sources that we have bound by it. My understanding is that we're certain, kind of a certain committee to do it. So
How long would it take you for Penrose to go over this preference and deem it that is suitable or not? How long would it take for you to determine that?
Prior to construction closing, which we're hoping will happen at the end of this year, we'll be submitting an outline of our marketing plan to the state. They'll approve it. We'll have to include the details of these guidelines as a local preference in that report, which they'll review and determine if it meets their requirements or not. So prior to the end of this year.
Will that be, if my thing is, if they say it's not suitable, would we get that information
before, I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that, when we, this authorizes me to be able to enter into negotiations, to actually write the actual pilot agreement, with our lawyers and, and with Dan's office. And so, we could, I think we'll probably work on language that being that they're not going to basically be presenting to the state for quite some time still, kind of what our requirements are going to be in terms of our pilot. The state and their lenders are going to look at the pilot payment amounts. They're going to make sure that that all works with their pro forma. And then we're going to also, we'll review this language. I think that working with Corporation Counsel's office, if there's something that HUD or DHCR in this case, rejects and it's related to this policy, I think we could have some language in there that, will allow us some wiggle room that if we need to rework our policy to be able to meet the state's rejection. I think as long as it's clear that it's not Penrose's rejection, but if it's HCR's rejection, of our proposed policy, I'm sure that will be probably standard language. Like they also could, object to the 20% of local labor. Who knows what they could object for? We'll just probably, we generally defer to the state law. If the state decides that something about one of our policies is not right, we try to give ourselves some wiggle room and.
Okay. And one other thing, 48 units of this project are being paid for by state E-Shine grants that we got. And under the requirements of, it's hot money, so it requires that the people be in part of a coordinated entry system. That coordinated entry system is local. So there's much more weighted towards local than it's legal by the definition of how HUD works.
Okay, thank you.
So, just because you mentioned that, will we get updates on those? So like, for example, you said, we're asking for 20% local. If the New York State deems, no, we're gonna make it 15%, will this council be advised? Like, how will the council be advised of those changes?
Yeah, I guess we would, I don't know what we've done in the past with pilot agreements. Once we're final with them, do we share them with the council? But we can.
Sure, I think in this instance, I think everyone's gonna hold each other accountable with what we all expect. And we're asking for those quarterly reports to come here and update. I would imagine Penrose is going to do that and follow through on that. I think at that point in time, we'd be able to update. And also potentially from the executive's office, if we have a small difference, we can communicate that via traditional ways we communicate in-house here, email, call, or memo. So yeah, I think on this, I think we're on the same page as to these are now the minimums right now. And if those change due to some state policy or some federal policy, we'll update the council as such.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Excuse my ignorance, I apologize for this, but what do you expect, what is expected, when we talk about additional negotiations, I guess my question is what are we negotiating around? Are we negotiating around the numbers that we presented tonight, or those numbers that are willing for the council willing to accept, or we're negotiating about the language of what needs to be in the pilot agreement, or are we negotiating, or we renegotiating the numbers one more time? I just want to try to understand what exactly is coming out of here.
We're done. If we vote on this and then the council approves it at our next meeting, our role is done. If there are any other discussions, to take place, I don't see them as being significant because we're saying, here's the basic framework, here's our understanding.
Now we're just working out the legalities, I get it.
Right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
There would still be some details, so for example, with the Kingston Municipal Preference Policy, still some discussion there, right? So does that help?
Great, thank you.
All right, good. Always better to be clear. So in that case then, do we have a motion to discuss? Michelle Hirsch, second by Michael Olivieri. Do we have any discussion?
I just want to say that I think that this is an incredibly important project for Kingston. And this AMI level 0 to 50% nationwide is about 28% of our and most vulnerable population. And I think that the benefits to the community will be far outweighed by having people in stable housing, and children in stable housing, and people, and positive impact on all around the community.
Zero fifth percent.
Chairman, can I interrupt? We also, and part of that, what we have done with our prior, payment of tax agreements, as we will also with this one, just a point of clarification, there is that pilot mortgage that we also will require, if you want to put in the community report, you can, but that will also be expected to be entered into, at the same time.
So what was the language be for that, Dan?
You can just add the additional number 6 pilot mortgage. Sorry.
So it just says item number 6, pilot mortgage. Okay. So then I'll read the whole thing, just so everybody's clear now what the thing says. Authorize the mayor to sign all documents necessary related to the presented pilot agreement by Penrose for the construction of the Golden Hill Affordable Housing Project. The pilot terms identified will be option B as presented in the March 1st letter attached to the committee report. In addition, the following additional items will be required. Second additional. 1, the project will utilize the Kingston Municipal Preference Policy, see attached. 2, the developers will utilize at least 20% local labor in the construction of the project. 3, the developer and the county will pay for any water-related infrastructure to build out the project. 4, the developer and the county will meet all the site plan approval requirements, including the emergency gate on Glen Street and traffic control improvements on Boulevard, parentheses Route 32 at Golden Drive, close parentheses 5. The developer will provide quarterly reports on the progress of construction until the final CFO is issued. 6, pilot mortgage. All right. So the motion by Michelle Hirsch, seconded by Michael Vieri. If there's no any more discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? No? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right.
Never saw Dennis move so fast.
The report is passed unanimously.
I do have a question. We've been calling this the Golden Hill Project for 2 years. Is there going to be a more official or fancier name for the?
We named it Golden Hill.
Okay.
That's what's gonna be on the front page.
All right.
Okay.
If that changes, I'll make sure to let you know in our quarterly report.
But you didn't have a name after one of your grandchildren? Which one? Thank you, Will, for being here. We appreciate it. We appreciate the work that you all put into this from our end. We look forward to working with you more closely.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
I want,
Michael,
if I may, just thank the committee, I want to thank the mayor and the staff. I think this has been a very productive back and forth between all of us. I think we've learned some things, that the city's learned some things, and I hope that we're inviting all of the great ground, and hopefully we can be there when we got quite a bit. So, thank you all for the last time.
Yes. We'll send you invitations for the county.
All right, we'll be on the board. We'll send you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night, okay?
So river committee members, we have one more item to discuss. The exciting issue of tax certiorari.
Yeah. So we have to.
We have to go. We'll have to go.
I'm gonna excuse myself unless you think you need me to talk to Danny, because, they're in good hands, so.
Excuse myself.
Not everybody. Okay. Wait, we have to have a motion to go into executive session in order to discuss
Tax certiorari proceeding. I'll give you the verbiage here with regards to Walgreen Eastern Company versus the City of Kingston.
Are you okay with that language? You're going to executive session?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay,
So I think,
Do we have, well, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
what are we doing?
Yeah, just hit,
No, they went to the full screen now.
Full.
There is no off.
Hit
You just
the
hit,
X in the upper right-hand corner. And then
Mute.
mute and then
All right, thank you, good. We are back in session.
I don't know what, auto frame or, I don't
No,
know.
I think we're good. We're good.
Okay.
You're
good.
All right.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so we have before us a committee report that reads authorization of settlement in the matter of Walgreen Eastern Company Incorporated, Wall Trust Property Incorporated Company versus the City of Kingston, SBL 56.26-11-43.100, 316 Broadway. The 2021 and 2022 assessments will not change. The 2023 assessment will be reduced from $3,219,000 to $2,440,000. We have a motion to discuss. Michael Vieri, second Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Sign quick.
Got to sign first, Steve. You're itching.
Yeah, motion.
I already signed it. Transferable?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone out there, in here.
During 8:15.
We adjourned already.